Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Public Service Commission of South Carolina. Today is Tuesday, November the 30th, 2021. It's 2 p.m. and we're here in docket number 2021-276C. Present in the hearing room, we have Commissioner Carolee Williams, Commissioner Hedden Thomas, Commissioner, Mike Caston, and Commissioner Delton Powers. Joining us virtually, we have Commissioner Thomas Irvin, and last but certainly not least, we have Vice Chair Belzer and Chairman Williams. Attorney Moser.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning or good afternoon, commissioners and parties. We are here today for the proceeding in docket number 2021-276-C, which concerns the application of ExteNet Asset Entity, LLC, for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to provide competing local exchange, access, and interexchange telecommunications services in South Carolina. This applicant is also seeking alternative and flexible regulation, and the proceeding has been scheduled for today, November 30th, 2021 at 2 p.m., and this hearing will be conducted virtually. We are also here today for the companion proceeding, which is docket number 2021-277-C, which concerns the application of ExteNet Asset Entity, LLC, for approval of transfer of customers and certain assets. This proceeding was originally scheduled to be held today at 3 p.m., but will be heard at the conclusion of this docket, 2021-276-C, pursuant to a directive order, and that's number 2021-165-H. I also believe there is potentially a request for consolidation of these matters, and all parties participating in these matters are present and the docket is in order. Thank you.
All right, applicant.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, Jack Pringle on behalf of the applicants in both dockets that are affiliated companies. I would like to move pursuant to Commission Rule 103-840 to consolidate the two proceedings. One is an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to be certified as a telecommunications company in South Carolina. And the second docket is one that seeks approval of the Commission for an asset transfer from another affiliated company under the umbrella of these ExteNet companies to the applicant in this case. The witness for both cases is the same witness, and there are common issues of, if not absolutely on the law of fact, and per the rule, I don't think that that any party would be prejudiced by this procedure, and certainly the applicants would not. Moreover, and this, I know I'm sort of getting out of order a little bit, the South Carolina Telephone Coalition, which was a party in one of the dockets, the application docket, has executed a stipulation with the applicant, and as a result of that stipulation is not going to appear at the hearing. Likewise, the Office of Regulatory Staff has filed letters in the docket, in both dockets, indicating its support of the relief sought in both applications, and indicating that they would not be present at the hearing because they had reviewed the applications and offered their support for them. So with that in mind, I would move that the proceedings be consolidated, although it is certainly manageable and doable to do one with this witness and then do the next if it pleases the commission. But given that there doesn't, at least from the applicant's perspective and what we know of the other parties, there's not any prejudice or problem to hear them both at the same time. And the witness can certainly talk about the subject of both interchangeably and part and parcel of his presentation.
Motion granted.
Okay. Well, with that in mind, a couple of preliminaries, and again, the ORS isn't here. As I mentioned, the applicant, what I'll call EAE in docket number 2021-276C, has entered into a stipulation with the South Carolina Telephone Coalition. And at this time, I'd like to move the stipulation and its attachment, which is the attachment is just a list of the South Carolina Telephone Coalition companies that are participating in the stipulation. I'd like to move that into evidence as the first hearing exhibit.
The stipulation with the attached or with the attachments will be marked as a composite exhibit and entered into the record as hearing exhibit number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then, as I mentioned previously, the Office of Regulatory Staff on November 24th, 2021, filed a letter in docket 2021-276C, the CLEC application or the CPCN application, where the council indicated that the ORS had reviewed the application and supports the granting of a certificate of public convenience and necessity, and that it's consistent with the public interest. I'd like to move that letter into a market for identification and enter it into evidence at the next hearing exhibit.
The ORS letter will be marked and entered into the record as hearing exhibit number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as I mentioned, the ORS also indicated in that letter that it did not intend to attend the hearing. Likewise, also on November 24th of this year, Counsel for ORS filed a letter in docket number 2021-277C, the asset transfer docket, that offered similar language supporting the application and indicating that the ORS would not attend the hearing. I'd like to ask that this letter be marked for identification and entered into evidence as the next hearing exhibit.
The ORS letter stating that they would not participate in this hearing will be marked and entered into the record as hearing exhibit number 3.
Okay, with the preliminary matters out of the way, the witness for the companies, for the applicants, is Mr. Brian Kirk, who is appearing virtually via WebEx.
Mr. Kirk, if you would please take the witness stand.
I'm accepted.
Mr. Kirk, if you would raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kirk, if you would, please state your full name and business address.
Brian Stewart Kirk, and our business address is 3030 Warrenville Road, Suite 340 in Lisle, Illinois, 60532.
Okay. By whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by ExteNet Systems, Inc., and my title is Vice President and Deputy General Counsel.
Okay. Are you authorized to testify on behalf of several different ExteNet entities in this proceeding?
Yes, all of the ExteNet entities, including ExteNet Systems, Inc. and ExteNet Asset Entity, LLC, EAE.
Okay. We'll talk about that a little bit. In docket number 2021-276C, the application of ExteNet Asset Entity, did you cause to be pre-filed direct testimony in question and answer format and consisting of 9 pages?
I did.
Do you have any additions, deletions, or changes to make to that testimony?
I do have one change.
Okay.
It is on page 8 of my testimony, line 15. There's an error in the address on that line. The address stated is 10802 Executive Center Drive, Benton Building, Suite 300, Little Rock, Arkansas, 72211. That was an oversight on my part. It should be the address I just stated, 3030 Warrenville Road, Suite 340, Lyle, Illinois, 60532.
Okay, and isn't it true that the mistake was actually that of your local council and not yours? Never mind, let's move on. Okay. Other than that change, do you have any additional changes to make to your pre-filed testimony?
No.
If I asked you all the questions that are in the testimony as you pre-filed it, would your answers be the same?
They would.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to ask that Mr. Kirk's direct testimony in 2021-276C be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. Kirk's testimony will be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Okay, and then Mr. Kirk, did you also, and this is with reference to docket number 2021-277C, cause to be pre-filed direct testimony in question and answer format consisting of 4 pages?
I did.
Do you have any additions, deletions, or changes to make to that testimony?
No.
If I asked you all the questions that appear in that pre-filed direct testimony, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to ask that Mr. Kirk's pre-filed direct testimony in docket number 2021-277C be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. Kirk's pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kirk, just so we can take a step back and help get the commission sort of situated, tell the commission a little bit about those ExteNet entities that you mentioned and what they do and how they, and the interplay between them.
Sure. So ExteNet Systems, Inc. is the primary operating company. It has many wholly owned subsidiaries and a couple of entities above it. But ESI, as I'll refer to it, is the primary operating company. It's been around almost 20 years, headquartered here in Illinois, and its primary business is to design, construct, own, and operate telecommunication systems that typically are DAS systems, distributed antenna systems, which consist of fiber optic cables and connecting various telecommunications equipment and antennas that are generally located in the public right-of-way on utility infrastructure, such as utility poles and streetlights.
Okay, let me stop you there. Let me stop you there
Yep.
for a second about distributed antenna systems. Give the commission some examples of how that may work practically in South Carolina or elsewhere. You know, what those systems would serve and what they would do.
Sure. So in the general wireless telecommunications infrastructure space, there is, and traditionally has been, the large macro towers on buildings and the large macro towers that are set on land, and those tend to cover large swaths of geographic area to provide telecommunication services to those wireless service providers' customers. The distributed antenna systems are smaller and local. The intention is to bring the antenna closer to the ground, closer to the end user, and thus serve a much smaller space. They're primarily used to either fill in gaps in coverage or increase capacity for those wireless networks.
Okay.
And just to add to that, ExteNet's primary business is to create those wireless distributed antenna systems and we tend to get as many wireless carriers on those systems. So we co-locate carriers on those systems, and our primary customers are the major wireless carriers such as Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile.
So is it accurate to say that you help those carriers extend and strengthen their networks?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Then move for that a little bit and talk about the company that I think you've called ESI and EAE, and a little bit about what they do and how they may be a little bit different.
Sure. So they're actually very similar. EAE is a wholly owned subsidiary, indirect wholly owned subsidiary of ExteNet Systems, Inc. It and its parent companies in between ESI and EAE were created for the purpose of an asset-backed securitization, debt financing that ExteNet did in 2019. Those entities, or EAE and its parent entities up to ExteNet Systems Inc., are solely hold the same kinds of assets and the same kinds of contracts, have the same kinds of customers, provide the same kinds of services. For the very most part, ExteNet Systems Inc. does do a few other services that EAE does not. It is, and they're created and hold only assets in that asset-backed securitization. It is run by contract through, by and through the employees of ExteNet Systems Inc., including the management team.
Okay. Does ESI hold a certificate from this commission?
It does.
Okay. And does it have certificates in other states too?
Yeah, I believe it's 42 other states.
Okay. And what about EAE?
Yes, it has 26 authorizations in 26 other states, and I believe it has 7 pending.
Okay.
Well.
And including South Carolina. You want
Including
a
South
certificate.
Carolina.
So just to sum it up, how come you want a certificate for EAE in South Carolina when ESI has already got one?
Sure. So EAE will be the telecom services provider for the assets that it holds, and to its customers that are under contract to use those assets. ESI will continue to have different telecommunications assets and provide services through those, and for those customers. But it will also continue to develop, construct, design, own and operate new networks under ESI's own certificate.
Okay, so in one of these dockets, you're asking the commission to approve the transfer of some assets from ESI to EAE, but ESI is going to continue to operate under its certificate after the transfer.
That's correct. Not all of the assets in South Carolina will be transferring from ESI to EAE. Mm-hmm. ESI will maintain a large chunk of those, a substantial number of assets and contracts.
Okay. And now back to EAE and the application before this commission. And I didn't ask you about this before. Tell the commission a little bit about your background and experience, and then a little bit about some of the other key employees or personnel within the ExteNet system of companies.
Sure. So my background, I've been a lawyer for 20 years now, always in the telecommunications space. I've been at ExteNet for nearly 11 and a half years. In the legal department, I am the second ranking lawyer in the legal department. And I provide legal support for a large swath of the company, but as it pertains to this particular matter, I am responsible for our regulatory activities and compliance and other legal related. Sorry.
Okay.
I accidentally hit mute there. Prior to that, I was at Motorola Inc. for approximately 8 years, and I provided legal support to our customer accounts, same customers, the large wireless service providers.
Okay. Just briefly mention some of the other folks who are on your team or involved in the ExteNet enterprise.
Sure. The two primary officers are Rich Coyle. He's the interim CEO, formerly the COO. He's been with ExteNet about 3 years. Prior to that, he worked for our one of our ultimate investors, I suppose, doing fiber-based acquisitions of fiber companies. Prior to that, he was SVP at Wilcon, a fiber company that provided telecommunication services in Southern California, which they ultimately sold. Prior to that, he was at Zayo in a SVP operations role, and I believe maybe one or two others. But he's always been a high-ranking officer in many different fiber-based companies. In addition, Anthony Lev is our general counsel. He has more experience than I do. I think close to 30 years in the telecommunications industry. He's been partner at one or I believe two law firms. He's been the general counsel at ExteNet's primary competitor, NextG Networks, as well as the chief compliance officer. He was also an SVP at American Tower, a large telecommunications tower company. And on our board, we have an experienced board, but in addition, the one I'd like to point out is Mark Ganzi. He has created and sold many telecommunications companies over the years, and he is currently the CEO of Digital Bridge, which is a publicly traded telecommunications infrastructure investor.
Okay. And as your testimony mentions, you filed some financial statements confidentially with this commission without necessarily publishing any particular numbers in that. Can you describe the financial condition of EAE and testify a little bit about why, in your view, the company is financially qualified to commence operations in South Carolina?
Sure. So EAE, as a wholly owned subsidiary, doesn't keep its own books or its own audited financial statements, but they are part of the ESI audited financial statements. We have many assets. We have both a large debt facility in the $500 million range, as well as this recent asset-backed securitization, which provided another, I think it was $300 million in capital. We've recently had a new investor come in that purchased about a third of the company, which brought in additional capital. And ExteNet has very large revenues on an annual basis that support the company. And all of those are available to EAE. And so there should be no concern about the availability, financial position of either company.
Mm-hmm. Do you deploy facilities before you have customers?
We do not.
Yeah.
We have an anchor tenant, typically, or as we call them, an anchor tenant, one of the carriers that chooses the location, and then we attempt to get other carriers on that same network.
Mm-hmm. The reason I mention that is I think the last time the commission was hearing applications like this may very well have been when some of your board members and key personnel in the 2000 and 2001 timeframe when the mantra was, if you build it, they will come. And subsequent events proved that to be not the best business plan. You think your folks have learned from those lessons of previous booms and busts?
While I can't speak to 2001, personally, I know for a fact that we have learned that lesson. That is, in the 11 and a half years that I've been here, that has never been our approach.
Yeah. If you obtain certification from this commission for EAE, will the company agree to comply with all applicable statutes and rules and orders of this commission?
Of course, yes.
Okay. And then one more question that has come up from time to time. You're seeking CLEC authority or local exchange authority, but the company doesn't have any plans to offer dial tone to local exchange customers, does it?
That's correct. We typically don't offer dial tone, and we I would say never, or almost never, have any residential customers.
Right. And indeed, one of the reasons for obtaining the certification or having Public Service Commission a certificate is because it gives you the ability to negotiate for access and rights of way and such. Isn't that right?
Absolutely, yes.
And a company has to be a public utility in order to, under the Telecom Act, to do those negotiations and obtain those rights of way, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then with respect to the asset transfer, or the transfer of certain assets from ESI to EAE, can you tell the commission a little bit about, and you've already made reference to this, what the benefits of that transfer would be and are?
Sure. So it provides EAE, it restructures our company to most efficiently operate, and most importantly, it enables this asset-backed securitization in order for ExteNet Systems Inc. To receive the benefits of that securitization and the capital that comes with it.
Okay. Did I fail to ask you any questions, or that you'd like to, or so that you can provide any additional information to the commission?
Nothing that comes to mind, but I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony. Please answer any questions that the commissioners may have for you.
Sure.
Commissioner questions for this witness. Commissioner Caston.
Good afternoon, and I apologize, I've already forgotten your name.
Brian Kirk.
Mr. Kirk. Really, just for my edification, on page 3 of your 277C testimony, along with providing lit services to commercial users and new services. What is lit services? Can you?
Sure. Those are kind of the antithesis of what you might call dark fiber, where it is literally just a piece of fiber optic cable that is essentially leased or licensed to a customer. They connect their own transmission equipment to either end. Lit services is a more of a managed service where the telecom provider has its own transmission service, transmission equipment at either end. And it typically involves splitting those fiber optic cables into different wavelengths to increase capacity. And so it's what you typically hear, a 10 megabit circuit or a 1 gigabit circuit. And it's usually point to point, where in our case, a business would want to route their traffic from, for example, one of their offices to another. So they have a very fast connection between the two.
I think that cleared it up.
How
That,
can I do better?
well, no, in essence, are you just saying it's, instead of one that's kind of not being used, it's one that's used and you're using it in multiple ways?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say it's slightly more control by the telecom provider, in that we send the customer's data through the pipeline instead of the customer sending it through the pipeline.
That's good enough. I probably went way deeper than I needed to. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Mr.
Sure.
Kirk.
Of course.
Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you, sir. I had a couple questions, and they may get into the confidential financial information a little bit. So, what should we do procedurally, since I know that's confidential information?
We can, if we need to go into executive session, we can do that now.
And just to be clear, but we'd still be, the procedure is that we're just going into, and that's fine with me, however, that you all have done it, just so that it's demarcated, that it's not something that becomes part of the public record or not on in the live stream. I'm not sure how it's been done recently. I wish I had more, of a way to.
Will we be able to keep the witness connected without the stream going out? Okay. As long as there's no audio or visual going out to the public, I think we're fine. Are you comfortable with that, Attorney Pringle?
I believe so. And, if that works, then I think that would be fine. Okay. Okay.
We will hear him internally, not externally. And no one will be able to see us to read our lips. All right. Let's go into executive session. All right. So the documents we discussed first, let me say this. We were not in executive session. We were in a closed confidential session. So let me say that. No decisions were made or reached. So that's that. And then the documents that were discussed, do we need to mark and enter them into the record to remain confidential and under seal?
Well, Mr. Chairman, they have been granted confidential treatment previously by an order of the Chief Hearing Officer, Mr. Butler. I don't know. I would certainly be, I would not have a problem in moving them in if they maintain their confidentiality and that remained in place. That having been said, the discussion that took place, I mean, actually, my preference would be that the discussion is on the record and involve the questions that Commissioner Thomas wanted to ask. And so I would kind of, if it suits the commission, not move the entire financial statements into the record of the hearing, you know, for that reason, because there was a specific set of questions about a part of that, and just to maintain the confidential nature. And I don't think, at least from the applicant's perspective, that what's contained in that set of confidential documents will be used in the remainder of the documents in terms of a proposed order. But I will accommodate the commission, but I think in order to keep it, to reflect exactly what happened in the limited closed session, is that we leave the exhibit not moved into the record.
All right. What's next?
And if the no further questions from the commissioners, I don't have any additional questions, but would propose that the applicants, if it pleases the commission, provide a proposed order or proposed orders in these dockets to the commission, if it pleases the commission, on or before Monday, the 4th of December, 5th? What is Monday?
6th.
6th, if that pleases the commission.
Let me check with my lawyer.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. And that's, you know, it also, I mean, and I guess this comes part and parcel to excuse Mr. Kirk at some point. But that was the only administrative matter that I could discern.
All right. Mr. Kirk, thank you for your presence here today and your testimony. You may step down from the stand and you are excused.
Thank you very much.
All right. So the parties have offered to have proposed orders in by Monday, December the 6th.
Monday, December the 6th.
All right. And that is suitable to me, as long as it's suitable to the lawyer on this case. Is there anything else?
I don't know whether I promised that this hearing could measure up to other hearings or proceedings that may have taken place here, but I hope it suffices to keep everybody occupied, at least for an afternoon. It's been a while. I mean, it may have been 20 years since I've done a telecom application before the full commission, because in recent years it's been before a hearing examiner. But it's enjoyable, and boy, I can remember, you know, a lot of different commissioners back in the day doing these. So for what that's worth, it was enjoyed it.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you for joining us today.